Hello YouTube, this is Boston Best 0407, and this is going to be my first video in a while, and I found myself on a hiatus recently, but that wasn't really my desire. My internet service was down, so I couldn't really do any videos. I had to go to the library to use the computer, and so maybe a week or so later I find myself with internet again, so I can get back to doing videos and stuff. And I decided I wanted to discuss a topic that is relevant for me because it did sort of come up or what have you in some of my previous videos, or rather some of my more recent videos. It becomes relevant. And of course, I'm talking about the issue of religion versus science, and this has been on my mind for a while. And so I thought I would take time out to discuss this because, like I said, it is relevant to some of the previous stuff I was talking about. Because I was looking at a lot of these issues from a spiritual and or religious dynamic, and I think we've gotten to a point, or at least it seems to me that we've gotten to a point in Western culture where we completely distrust anything even remotely spiritual or religious. And I think this is rather unfortunate for a lot of reasons. I think it's unfortunate because, for one, when you look at science, for example, science is great. So I like science and everything. I'm not anti-science, but there's a certain flawed way of thinking within science. For example, where you look at empirical data, you look at physical things, and you make these judgments based on these physical manifestations or what have you in nature, right? And if you don't have some sort of wisdom, if you don't have some sort of, I don't know, a priori reasoning, or if you don't have some sort of intuition to apply to it, and to understand that, to have perspective really on what you can or can't know, you end up missing the point. And we obsess about these things to a huge degree in our culture, as I showed in my last video, for example. Excuse me. We obsess about these things, and there's plenty of times where you hear about things that scientists have discovered, archaeology, what have you, different things, where they thought something wasn't the case, they thought something was a myth, for example, because they couldn't find evidence of it. They'll only find out later that in fact it was true. This happens a lot. And we worship this scientific method, we worship all these things, but we miss the point. We miss the larger picture. We miss that, I don't know, intuitive wisdom, if you will, that can guide us to understand things. And really it comes from understanding that we are not, we're finite creatures, we are not supermen, not yet, anyway. Because I sort of implied that I was a Nietzschean in previous videos. Well, not yet, anyway. But I'm not a complete Nietzschean, anyway. But I'm not a complete Nietzschean, maybe a half Nietzschean or something. But I like his ethics, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, dealing with this topic of religion versus science, it's really not, I believe, one or the other. As I discussed in my previous video, as I implied in my previous video, you sort of need a bit of both. Now, I was talking about empirical data versus, I don't know, a priori reasoning, for instance. But we need something to guide the other. These sorts of ideas, religion and science, for example, deal in different parts of the mind. That is, science deals with the exoteric, or what's physical, what's right in front of us. Science deals with the esoteric, what's unseen, what we can't possibly know. It's that mystery kind of thing. It's that wisdom that we don't actually know. And the wisdom that comes from the mysteries of the universe, or the wisdom that we can find from what we don't know, is that we are finite creatures and we can't possibly know everything. In science, for example, there's plenty of things or situations where people said were impossible and became possible later, or things that people believed were not possible and were kooky nonsense that became real later. For example, most scientists now believe that there is a great deal of possibility that extraterrestrial life exists. Decades ago, most scientists would regard that as kooky nonsense. They would not have believed it. Some would have even believed that we were alone in the universe. Now, recently, maybe a couple months ago, I was just fooling around the internet, and I came across an article about this discovery of super Earths, like at least 3 in a different galaxy somewhere. And maybe if I find the article somewhere, I'll post in the low bar. I'm not promising you anything, but if I find it if I can find it, I'll post in the low bar. Now they find out that in fact, there are planets like Earth, and there's a great deal of possibility there could be life on those planets, wherever they may be, right? So just denying the fact that there's a possibility of extraterrestrial life would be scientific, because it can't be proven, but now it can be proven. You always have to have that possibility open. This is where the militant atheists really miss the point. They really, 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 really miss the point. And I'm shocked by people who think this way. They're extremists, right? They're just as bad as the fundamentalist Christians. They want to say that science has proved that God doesn't exist, right? They want to prove this, but they can't possibly know for sure. Any rational, any reasonable person, concludes that they don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. You don't know for sure. People don't know for sure. We as human beings are very intelligent, but we can't possibly know everything. We just can't possibly know everything. And so, understanding of our place in the larger universe, understanding that we're finite creatures, that the universe is bigger than us, is an important value to have. And religion, traditionally and historically, has leaned in this direction. Spirituality, for example, is something that is innate, inherent in human beings. We are spiritual creatures. We are inclined to be spiritual on some level. We have an instinct for belief, whether it's philosophical, spiritually, or what have you. All religion is, because people at the end of the day don't understand what religion is. They don't understand anything about the nature of religion. They hear religion and they think fundamentalist Christians, jihadist Muslims, all these kind of things. And this is not religion necessarily. Well, all religion is the codification of a series of spiritual traditions. That's all. It comes from our consciousness. And it's from our consciousness that we create religion and we create science. And religion itself, science itself came out of religion. It's fascinating to consider, for example, the things that today are would be regarded as occult practices like alchemy, gave birth to modern sciences, right? Chemistry, and there's another one, I forget what it was now. Geology, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But alchemy and some sciences that would now be regarded as kooky, crazy nonsense, or occultic stuff that has no basis in science, was at one point scientific. Now we get rid of that and we go with something modern, which is based on empirical data and all these things. The point I'm trying to make, of course, is that religion, spirituality, whatever, you shouldn't let the problems of religion in practice obscure your mind from being able to appreciate spirituality. I believe I'm a spiritual person myself. I even consider myself somewhat a religious person on some level. I'm not a Christian. I am not a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm not a member of a Christian church. I don't really personally like Christianity very much, to be honest. I'm not a Christian. Does me not being a Christian and me not even really liking Christianity that much, does that mean that I can't be a spiritual person, that I can't be religious? No, not at all. I find my own beliefs. I find my own path. We love this kind of stuff in Western culture. We love this idea of thinking for ourselves. But most of us rarely ever think for ourselves. It's really quite pathetic, to be honest. People are mob-like. They will jump on anything and never think for themselves. They would jump on something and then they get all angry and upset and they want to get pitchforks in the street and go kill people. Like I'm exaggerating, but I'm trying to make a point here, because with with fundamentalist Christianity, that's a problem, right? That's crazy stuff. Those people are pretty messed up, right? But then you get the militant atheists, and they're just as bad, if not worse, because they're people who should know better. They're the rational people, right? They're rational people, but they embrace crazy ideas. They're extremists. They're inflexible. They're like damaged children that can't get over their childhood or something. Like they had such a bad experience. They can't mature. They can't grow up. I've had some personally crappy experiences in my life, and it's made me a better person. It's made me a more mature person. I have perspective. It's important to be able to have perspective, but we have no perspective. And this is because we do worship science. We worship empirical data. We worship what we can prove with our eyes. And when we can't prove something, we just assume nothing exists. And it encourages nihilism, but not this sort of nihilism in like the red pill, blue pill dichotomy. I call it a dichotomy, or maybe a paradigm would be a better term. Who knows? But that's the expression of nihilism. But that's merely the process of getting outside of your perceptions to understand the larger picture and to understand, for me anyway, why things exist in the first place. What is the functions of religion? What is the function of science? Yeah, we can't know if God exists. Yeah, probably better if we were all agnostics, if we were really rational, realistic people. We'd think this way. But what is the function of religion? What does religion do? What does spirituality do? What do these things do? What does science do? How are these things? How do we apply these things in our lives? That's really the ultimate question for me, anyway. And what I conclude is that we need these things that are outside of ourselves, that are objective, to give us foundation. And this is ultimately the issue, because science, in its purest form, would never give us foundation. I don't believe it could. Religion deals with the other parts of us, the unseen parts of us. Because as I said before, all religion is just the codification of a series of different spiritual traditions combined into one with a dogma, with various things. And you can criticize those things, and you can criticize the fact that religion has functioned as something civic as opposed to something real or genuine. But we shouldn't again lose our perspective. And so, I gotta be honest that relating to, of course, my experiences with Christianity, for example, I grew up Christian. And I believe there's a lot of people in Western culture that have grown up Christian and have had nasty, embittering problems with Christianity that has made them not want to be or follow Christianity. It's made them assume that all religions are evil, that all religions are the same, which they're not. I mean, there's similarities in every religion, but not all religions are the same. And not all religions have the same theology. I remember I was reading about Islamic theology, for example, and while there's problems with Islam and stuff, I could go with that. I think Islamic theology, personally, from my experience with it, is superior to Christian theology. That is, Islamic theology makes better arguments for the existence of God, even for the existence of things like equality, egalitarianism is better argued in Islam. And those sorts of things are better argued in Islam, or could be better argued in Islam. Could be, with an emphasis on could be. In Islam than they are in, say, Christianity. Christianity is more of a self-hating religion. It's more of you're inherently evil and flawed forever, and there's nothing we can do about it, which is why we need the Savior, Jesus Christ. And that can be a very frustrating thing. But again, it's not apparent in all religion. Not all religions encourage us to hate ourselves. I remember I was watching a video recently because I was curious. So I looked up Islamic theology or whatever. I wanted to learn more about it. So I came across this video where this guy was saying that in Islamic history there was a great deal of desire to act. Muslims have a desire to fight for their religion, their beliefs. When you read about the heathens of Northern Europe and Scandinavia, for a very long time, they tried to remain or keep Christianity out. They fought against Christianity, and they used this, and the symbol they used as a symbol of the opposition was the hammer of Thor. This was an example of them wanting to defend their religious beliefs. So religion can be a powerful thing. inspire you to do big things, to do great things. But it all depends on the type of religion. And so I've never been greatly impressed with anti-religious thinking, which is ironic for me given the subcultures that I'm interested in, the subcultures that I'm involved in, the music I play, the lifestyle I live on some level, all these different things, right? It's ironic that I would think this way, but being that I am a free thinker and not a group thinker, I do think for myself, and I have never been impressed, even when I was younger, never been impressed with anti-religious thinking. I've always felt that you needed it on some level. I've always felt that way. And so, thinking about that, I've always been attracted to anti-Christian ideas. I've never really, that kind of thing from my own experience with it. So, I've been fascinated with anti-Christian ideas. But I've never been greatly impressed by religious ideas. And the two are different. And so as it relates back to science, our worship of science in Western culture, this obsession with the mind, with empirical data, with what we can prove, all these different things, all of which have their roles, no doubt. But these sorts of things, we almost, in a strange, ironic sort of way, we sort of engage in a kind of inverted Platonism, where Platonism told us that we could not trust anything outside the spirit, and the physical, material world was evil. What we do today with our thinking is we inverse this. We believe that anything spiritual we cannot trust, and it is foolish nonsense, superstitious nonsense. Whereas everything that's physical, we can trust. Excuse me. We can trust that. So let's just trust everything we can see, and it's an attractive idea, but you miss the point. I mean, there is that element. I admit that to some degree or another, I am a skeptical person, as I stated in other videos. I tend to think it's a large amount of it is probably psychological. So there's that side of my thinking. But I'm not one of these people that I'm not one of these people that lets that bind me. I still want to use my imagination. I still want to think about the issue. I still want to let my mind wander on some level, to figure things out, or to just let my imagination wander a little bit. And this is what a lot of people have. It seems like some people don't have any imagination anymore. And it's just a lot of these kind of ideas, I have to admit, are suffocating. The militant atheists, the fundamentalist Christians, they're all suffocating. But again, you really have to think for yourself and not be a fucking extremist. Excuse my language, but I hate that kind of stuff. Think for yourself. Don't let the group prevent you from thinking for yourself. But anyway, I'm kind of ranting. But how all of this, of course, relates back to what I'm saying is that, as I stated before, if we pay attention to all of our face value perceptions, we can be very easily fooled by what we see. That is, if we only go by what we see and we don't think that there may be something else, we get fooled very easily. Going back to Machiavelli, for example, and Machiavelli applied to this topic seems a little odd to people. Might seem a little bit odd because that was politics, But Machiavelli was an interesting thinker because he pointed out, giving advice to the prince, for example, that perceptions were more important. He just pointed out how princes behave, perceptions being more important than reality. This is how politics works. It's how the real world works. I think you can apply the same thing to your perceptions about the world. I think there's a metaphysical significance to this way of thinking, and it's almost something you have to inverse in a way. Because when you look at the world and you assume everything is what you see, you can easily get fooled. Sometimes things are not always what you seem. Going back to the African proverb. So all these things I think are big problems in Western culture, and they've only gotten worse. They get worse all the time. Apparently, seems like that to me anyway. And so, think open-mindedly. Let your mind wander. Don't just rush to conclusion on either side. But don't be afraid of having some foundation in your life. don't be afraid of coming to conclusions until it becomes clear that you need to change them. I admit that I'm a bit of an indecisive person, as you can clearly see from some of the videos I've done. That I can be and tend to be an indecisive person. Part of this is not even the indecisiveness exactly, but just as an aside, the fact that coming on doing videos is kind of a weird thing for me. But so maybe people see it differently than I do. Maybe some people are more decisive on what they believe than I do. But I believe I have foundation, but I'm willing to be flexible with that. Willing to adapt to evidence, adapt to whatever, adapt to what I find. But you need both. And so what I'm talking about is ultimately a polarity. It's a balance. It's a kind of a yin and a yang. And if we approach, because it also goes back to men and women, for example, women being intuitive, men being rational, whatever. And this also goes back to what I was saying in my previous videos. And so you have to, you have to have both, because both of us are capable of having both these things. It's a human thing, but one has it more than the other. But this is I think an important value to have. You have to have this balance, But anyway, that's been ranting on enough. But that's my take on the whole religion versus science thing. And of course, I'm not discussing the exact details of the arguments or whatever. This is just a rant of mine on giving my opinion on the topic. And I apologize for making this long again. I kind of want to try to shrink down my videos a little bit more in the future. I'm not sure what my next video is going to be, but I had this one idea that I had in my mind for a while, so I think I'm going to do that. It's going to be different, going into a different direction than the topics I've done here. But I hope that some of my previous videos didn't go over people's heads, especially the red pill, blue pill dichotomy video. That was kind of a weird video. I didn't really codify my arguments really well and bring them all together. But anyway, I'll just end here. I'm looking at the clock on my recorder right now, and it's been going on for about almost 22 minutes, a little bit more than that. So I think I'm going to end here, and I'll talk to you later, and see you later. Bye.